early. All right, let's see here. We are live. I've got my lights on. Going to put on an appropriate noggin cover. Yeah. Yeah, I don't have any spares of this shirt. I mean, I don't think. I don't think I have any spares. I'd have to have one made for you. All right, hang on one second. You are. Why does it still say you're in the green room? All right, I thought I was assigning you. Hang on. Can you hear me? Just shake your head if you can hear me. Okay. I can't hear you. Unassigned placeholder. Guest is in green room. I have you assigned to. Oh, there you are.
There you go. Now
Okay.
I'm on the air.
Now you're on the air. But why can I hear you now?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah. Okay.
You
What
should
the
be able
heck?
to.
All right, and this should be
Yeah,
guest
that's
only.
weird.
That's guest only. All right. There we go.
Cool.
Yeah.
So
I
you
do.
don't know what happened?
I
Just
know it was saying that you're in the green room, but it also was simultaneously showing you being assigned to guest one. Uh,
oh, that's weird.
uh, uh. Okay, so phone is muted. Excellent. Good to know.
Yeah.
All right, so I don't have. Did you come with tips and tricks?
I did. I did come with
Okay.
some. I tried to figure out some, but
Okay.
it
Awesome.
was it was trying to figure it out from, maybe what we've done in the past. I really don't know how good they are, but
Well,
I
three,
did.
4, 5, something like that. I
Yeah.
have I have several tips. No, by the way, this is all live. By the way, this is all going out now. Nobody should know about this. I have it set up as unlisted for this first one.
Okay.
We'll make it listed in the, or even if it's unlisted, we'll make sure that people who subscribe are aware of it. They'll get
Yeah.
notifications, YouTube notifications or something. But so in theory, nobody is really seeing this, but it'll be
They
available on
could.
the channel later. So whatever we're talking about
Yeah.
now is being recorded
It's
on YouTube
and it'll be out there forever on the
forever
internet.
and
Ever. Yeah.
ever and ever. Uh, anyway, so I've given some presentations to a couple user groups on hidden gems of macOS, which are basically tips and tricks.
Yeah.
And I have those lists here, and I'm just going to randomly pick from these lists. I just pick something. Okay, what do we want to talk about now? All right, that sounds good. I have plenty. I have maybe 20 or 25 different tips or tricks here from all the different presentations. So I'll just pick
Yeah.
some because there are some fun
Yeah.
ones,
That sounds good.
and I'll try to pick some that do not depend upon visually showing them.
Yeah.
Many of these I was showing,
Right.
but I'll try to pick some that don't depend upon visually showing.
Right. I probably have some that depend upon visually showing them, so I'll try to explain them as much. I did pick a number of them, and then I kind of went through and kind of weeded through and picked a few of those out of the ones I originally picked. So I thought hopefully these will be the good ones, and they don't overlap with yours too much. But
Now I do have. Let's see what I have here. Let's see if I click on this. Yeah, see that shows whatever my current active app is.
so you could do a
I could,
presentation
yeah,
then.
I could do demos if I wanted to. So I made
Cool.
Firefox my active app, and so it's actually I should probably bring this back to my main screen. By any chance, can you hear the fans from my computer?
Every once in a while,
Like
like I just
right
heard
now?
him. No,
Okay, because they're
now
really
I hear him.
cranking.
Yeah, now I hear him. Is that on the? That's not in the studio, right?
It's no, it's on a MacBook Pro.
Okay.
Okay. I don't know if I can.
I I think it has to get pretty quiet for the fan noise to come through. Seems like after it's you've been sitting for a while, and now you hear it.
Okay. Lovely. Well, that's all right. I can filter that out later.
Yeah.
Excuse me. So, let me come back. That's the program. All right, I'm going to put the program over here so I can see it and make sure that I somehow. Oh no, I didn't mess it up. I moved Firefox away. Okay, there we go. All right, that's all right. I wish I could make this program view smaller. Oh, I can. Ha ha! Look at that. Wow, ask and ye shall receive.
You're able to make it smaller?
Smaller, yeah. And then I've got a chat window by some weird chance, if anybody if anybody figures out
Stumbles
the
upon this. Yeah.
stumbles upon it, they can actually chat with us. But that's what we'll do. We'll do live chats. We'll invite people to join us live while we're recording. So
Yeah.
this is the warts and all recordings of For Mac Guys Only, which is normally never
Right.
released, but this will be what gets released on YouTube.
Gets
And
right.
then
Right.
the edited version will be what gets released. Oh shoot! I should have been recording on my Zoom this entire time. And then the edited version will be what gets released in the regular feed.
In the feed. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So let me bring up my notes here, and we can get started. Now, people listening will have to understand that we are recording an audio show.
Right.
And I may be looking at notes, or I may be looking at this other screen or something like that. And that's
Right.
because
Right.
we're
Right.
actually recording an audio show, not a video
Audio
show.
show.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, sound levels I'll put over here.
You would think veteran for Mac Guys Only listeners would know. They're pretty sharp.
They're incredibly sharp.
Yes.
We would not be here 16 years
No.
later if it weren't for them.
Right.
The goal, they always say in management, what you need to do is surround yourself by smart people.
Yep.
I've surrounded myself by smart listeners and
Smart listeners.
co-hosts, and by
Well,
surrounding
smart
myself
listeners.
with smart listeners and smart co-hosts, it actually sounds like I'm brilliant, but in
Yeah.
reality, it's you and it's them.
No.
Okay.
I tend to make anybody sound brilliant, actually.
All right. Let's see here. We are currently 9 minutes and 15 seconds into it. So this is for Mac Guys Only, 393. And we're about 9 minutes and 20 seconds in. All right. Ready to get started?
Ready.
Okay, cool.
Ready.
Cool beans. I'm gonna test something here real quick. Tell me if you can hear me.
No.
Check,
Can you hear
check,
you?
check, check. Now you
Now I
can.
can hear you.
Okay, good. All right, so the mute button works the way I hope it to work on the Zoom. All right, wonderful. Just in case I have to cough or something.
Right.
It's a lot easier than using the mute mic Although, well, it's not too bad. Here, let me try it this way.
Yep. Can't hear you.
And now you should be able to. Check, check.
Right.
Now you can?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. All right. Wonderful.
Yep.
I'm going to use
Perfect.
the mute on the Zoom. I think it's smoother.
Oh yeah, no.
All
It's
right.
nice when you can just hit a hardware button just to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, now we're 10 minutes and 40 seconds into it. Strike 10:40. Okay. Here we go in 3, 2, 1. It's for Mac Eyes Only, episode number 393 for August 12th, 2022. The tip of the Macberg. Hey everyone, welcome back to For Mac Eyes Only, the show for the Mac community, where we share our thoughts and opinions on current Mac news and events. And welcome back indeed. It has been a long road to get to this point, but with 16 years of history behind the show and only a handful of reaction time episodes to show for it the past few years, well, we knew it was time for a comeback. But we weren't quite sure what form that comeback would take. Now, before we go any further, that brings us to the person without whom we may not be here today. The man who poked and prodded and pleaded for months, nay years, for us to get back to a regular show again. It's Eric Erickson. Hey, Eric.
Hey, Mike, it is me, and you're right. I did poke and prod. I did bring it up. I was going to say every so often, but probably quite often, because I thought, you know what, you had a great show. Why let it? Why give the people what they want?
Well, at least give you what you want.
Right, exactly.
Well, I think many of our longtime listeners who are still with us know this. But one of the reasons that For Mac Eyes Only has kind of taken a back seat the past few years is because of Macstock. Now, Macstock is something that I originally came up with back in 2009. I looked it up when I registered the domain name. It was 2009, and it came about because I wanted to come up with some sort of an idea for Mac Eyes Only. Macstock came about because of For Mac Eyes Only. Macstock is a For Mac Eyes Only. How should I say this? It's a For Mac Eyes Only property, if you will. And
It's a wholly owned subsidiary.
A wholly owned subsidiary. Yeah, I suppose it is. Well,
Yeah.
It wouldn't exist if it were not for Mac Eyes Only, because Macstock was originally supposed to be a meetup, a local meetup for Mac Eyes Only. And in fact, we actually had a meetup. We didn't call it Macstock. I think we called it For Mac Eyes Only meetup or something like that. But it was in October 2012. And it was kind of a loose template for what would become Macstock. It included you, Eric. It included Gary, Gaz, as folks know him. It included Barry. And it included two special guests, Brian Henson, and I'm only mentioning his last name because everyone knows him here on the show, Brian Henson and Alan. Alan actually drove up from, I believe it was the St. Louis area. Do you remember? I think it was the St. Louis area he drove up from, and joined us at my office in Woodstock, Illinois, for the first For Mac Eyes Only meetup. And it was a blast. We had a great time. And the reason I mentioned Brian is because that was really the first time I met Brian in person. He was a regular listener. And from that point, he became a contributor. And in the years since, he's actually become an incredibly valuable member of the Macstock family. He is Macstock's speaker wrangler. He is such a key volunteer at Macstock every summer. He's responsible for making sure the speakers are prepped and ready for their talks. They're mic'd up. They have their notes. They have the water. They have everything they need. If there's technical issues, he takes care of them. And he is, again, incredibly valuable to the success of Macstock every summer. And I'm so thankful that he reached out. He became part of the For Mac Guys Only family and now part of the Macstock family. But Brian was there at the first For Mac Guys Only meetup. Now, in 2015, I kind of took a leap of faith and launched Macstock itself. In-person conference. It was designed for all folks who use and love Apple products. And it's geared toward end users of all experience levels, which is a little unusual for tech conferences. And that first Macstock, which was, excuse me, just a single day, played host to presenters and attendees from all around the world. It included first-time users, it included students, retirees, professional developers even attended, business owners, and even included folks who are new to Apple's products. Now, I think what makes Macstock unique, and I mentioned this just a moment ago, is that it's within the independent Apple conference community, and there are quite a few independent Apple-focused conferences. Apple is unique in that its specific focus is on the end user. But it doesn't mean that the talks are beginner only. We have talks that run the gamut from beginner to advanced, and we have deeper dives where our presenters can really get down into the nitty-gritty of their topics. And what's interesting is every year there's someone who says, "Oh gosh, I really don't have any interest in music production, or I don't have any interest in this particular productivity app," or whatever it might be. And then by the end of the day, they say, "Man, I'm so glad I sat in on that deeper dive because I learned so much. Even if I don't use that particular application, I learned how to apply some of that presenter's topics to my daily life." And that's the point. That's the whole point of Macstock, is to just expand people's horizons and help them get the most out of their Apple hardware and software. In fact, I took note of this because one of my favorite quotes from this year came from one of my presenters. You might know him, Eric, Mike Rose. He used to write for, well, I kept hearing him call it 2A, the ultimate Apple weblog.
Yeah.
Michael T. Rose.
The unofficial, yeah.
The unofficial Apple weblog, yeah.
Yeah.
Dearly missed.
Yes.
The unofficial Apple weblog provided a lot of news links for Mac Guys Only when we used to cover news all the time. And I'm certain some of Mike's articles were included on the show.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I would be surprised if they weren't.
Yeah.
But many of the folks who wrote for 2A, as he calls it, are in attendance at Macstock. It's amazingly well represented. In fact, Brett Terpstra has become one of the biggest supporters of Macstock and one of the biggest cheerleaders for Macstock. And he was a regular there. In fact, I used to read Brett's articles in, I believe it was Mac Life magazine. I would read his articles in as well.
I love his stuff. And I've been a big fan of Brett Terpstra for a while. I use his app, Marked and Marked too.
Oh, yes.
He's a smart guy.
Incredibly smart guy. And maybe we'll bring him on to talk about Marked, because he's given presentations at Macstock on Marked, and it's a great, it's a small app. It's not like an overly complex app. It's a small app, but it does some very specific things. And if you have need for those things, it's great to have. In fact, his latest effort is called Bunch, which is a little automation tool. And again, it's just a small app. I think he wrote it to scratch his own itch. And it's incredible the things within your Mac OS ecosystem that you can tie together and automate by way of Bunch. Fun little app. Fun little app.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I didn't get to the quote. So Mike Rose referred to Macstock this year as possibly the least corporate event in the history of technology conferences.
Yeah. It's
And
awesome.
yet, to give you an idea, he wrote, it featured 4 people who work for Fortune 500 enterprise software companies on stage during the speaker Q&A. So that's really how deep and how varied the attendance is at Macstock. It's also why Macstock has become kind of all-consuming in my life. Aside from running the small business, aside from family things going on, there's Macstock, and Macstock has become this entity in and of itself that is just, it consumes me. It consumes me from, well, probably November through July when it's hosted.
Yeah.
In fact, the
And
last
I know when it gets closer to July, I stop, I'm going to leave him alone because I know he's really he's totally tied up right now.
totally tied up. In fact,
Yeah.
the 2 weeks prior to Macstock, Janet has coined my condition as Macstock brain. That's what she calls it. And I become singularly focused on it to the point where I just, anything else that needs to be scheduled or done just kind of gets pushed to the side, rescheduled, and put off at least to the week after, if not 2 weeks after Macstock, because it just blah. That week is just really crazy leading up to it. Anyway, so that's that. Okay, let me back up for a second, because at this point I should probably mention Barry's Midwest Mac Barbecue. So again, Macstock exists because of For Mac Eyes Only. I know Barry because of For Mac Eyes Only.
That's
And
right.
in early 2015, when Macworld was canceled, I believe the last one was 2014, right? So 2015,
Yeah.
Macworld was canceled, and Barry still wanted to see all of his friends. And I had met with Barry in 2010 to talk about the idea of Macstock and how we could turn it into a For Mac Eyes Only meetup and what we could do and who we could invite and all that kind of stuff. And so 2015, 5 years later, he says, hey, I'm going to host a barbecue in my freaking backyard. And I'm going to invite all these people. And he showed me the list of people he's inviting. And I couldn't believe it. These people are flying in for a barbecue? Goodness gracious. This is what became the core of Macstock, because I looked at that list and I said, Barry, remember that thing we talked about back in 2010? Remember we talked about a meetup? What if we plus it? What if you host the barbecue and I take care of Macstock, and we go through your list and we invite some of these folks to become presenters, and the rest of them we invite to attend, and we'll get the word out and see how many other people we can get to attend. And it turned out to be a single day event held on Father's Day in June of 2020 or 2015, 2015. And it was, considering we put the whole thing together in about 8 weeks, it was incredibly successful from the standpoint of, at the end of it, people were coming up to me saying, okay, when is the next one, Mike? And I had just gotten through that one and wasn't even thinking about the next one. And yet here are people asking me, when is the next one? And the fun thing about it is that when Barry and I met in 2010, and I had this list of people I would like to invite to present, many of the people on that list that I said I wanted to invite were on his barbecue attendee list and became presenters for that first Macstock, and have since become regular, valued contributors to Macstock's success. Chuck Joyner, Allison Sheridan, Brett Terpstra, all these folks And one individual attended Barry's barbecue. I still can't believe this. He attended Barry's barbecue. He traveled over here from the Netherlands and and came for a barbecue. So I'm glad that we could make his trip a little more full by hosting Macstock that summer as well. However, he's been to every single in-person Macstock since, and just came to Macstock 6 a few weeks ago. Okay, so that's Macstock's growth. That's how it came about, and with small businesses. And I don't think you mind my mentioning, Eric, you're a small business owner. I'm a small business owner. In fact, we here are a family of two small business owners. That became all consuming, and for macOS only, unfortunately, took a little bit of a back seat. Now, we did continue to do reaction time episodes. In fact, I think we even did one or two regular episodes in there, but it was difficult to find time to schedule. When are we going to do these episodes? When am I going to find time to edit them? And then also knowing that the prep time for what was a traditional episode for macOS only was in the range of, anywhere from 15 to 20 hours per week I was spending on it. And when am I going to find time for that? So it took a little bit of a backseat. Reaction time episodes were great because we recorded them, I edited them, boom, they went out. There wasn't really a whole heck of a lot of prep time for them. So those I could keep doing. But Macstock was starting to get some traction, and 2019 was its biggest year yet. And then we had the pandemic, and that set Macstock back. But I wanted to keep it going, so we did virtual Macstocks in 2020 and 2021, where I interviewed the presenters or asked them to give presentations remotely via Zoom, and we gathered people for that. And surprisingly, or unsurprisingly, it was really not much less work to do that than it was to do a regular Macstock. A little, we didn't have all the in-person planning stuff that needs to go, but I still did T-shirts. I still did all the stuff that I like to do for people. But if they bought a ticket, gosh darn it, they got a T-shirt. Or if they wanted a T-shirt, they could order one. So I tried to keep as many of the in-person aspects of Macstock around as possible, but still, it was a bit of a setback. So this year, for the first time in 3 years, Macstock was back again with Macstock 6. And that was held July 23rd and 24th. Considering everything that worked against it these past 3 years, I thought it was incredibly successful. We had first-time attendees. We had previous attendees. We had a great roster of presenters. But it was also around this time that I began to feel incredibly nostalgic for macOS only. Now, since its launch in 2006, it has been such a big part of my life. Not only introducing me to you, Eric, but as I mentioned, it also introduced me to Barry. It introduced me to Gary, to Dave Ginsberg,
right.
who now hosts In Touch with iOS. And the list goes on and on and on. And I'm afraid I'm going to miss someone if I just keep listing names off.
Yeah.
But not to mention all the incredibly great people who tune into the show each episode, many of whom I'm now proud to call my friends. And you know who you are. So even with Eric's nonstop prodding, I'm
You
teasing
still
you,
wanted
but
Yeah.
it's true. But it's true.
Yeah.
But even with your prodding, I knew it had to come back. But it had to come back in a way that fit well with our small businesses, with our personal lives, and with Macstock. So
And something you could sustain.
something we can sustain, something that is realistic and we can fit into our lives, but keep for macOS only alive, because it really is important to me. I know it's important to you, and it's important to everyone who's hung with us these 16 years. It's been 16 years, Eric. That's crazy.
Yeah, that's
This
amazing.
November will mark 16 years for macOS only. And the only reason our show numbers are lower is, we're at 393, is because we took a step back. I mean, we were producing 50 plus shows a year. Now, we're doing 6, 7, 8. So I was resetting the season numbers with the September reaction time episode. So very often WWDC would be episode 6 or 5, something like that, which it was. I think it was episode 5 this year of the, I don't even know what season that would have been. I lost track. 16? 16,
Yeah.
maybe?
Well, 16 now. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
So I decided as I was prepping this episode that what we would do is reset the seasons with November, which is when Macstock launched. Macstock, see, I'm doing it. When For Mac Eyes Only launched was in November. So that's when we're going to reset the season numbers, and so we're gonna be at a much higher number of episodes this season, as it were, because now we're getting back into the swing of things.
I'm getting back into it.
Yeah. So what we came up with is a semi-regular show focused on a single topic. That's the idea, anyway. And our goal is to get a new episode out every 2 weeks. Right? That's what we had
And
said.
that's, yep.
Yeah.
Second and fourth week, I think you said, yeah.
Yeah. We'll aim for second and
Possible.
fourth week. We want to be somewhat
Yeah.
regular with this. And Fridays, I think, work pretty well with my schedule. I think they work okay with your schedule. And
Yeah.
and here's the nice thing. So yes, Macstock interrupted for Mac Eyes Only, but I should mention that thanks to Macstock, I've got an entire roster of amazing guests that we can invite to join us right here on the show whenever we can. In fact, I was talking to someone just last night, no spoilers because I got to get him invited officially. But I was talking to someone just last night who actually would be a first-time guest on For Mac Eyes Only, but is someone that I'm certain everyone who's listening knows of his work. And I'm excited to have him join us if or when he can. Ooh, secrets. Now, the fun part is this. What we're doing now. Oh, wait, you probably can't see it, can you? You probably can't see this. But what we're doing now is we're live. We are live on YouTube as we record this week's show. And we're going to be live for every show from now on. Now, actually, I hope that's okay with you, Eric. I didn't
Yeah.
I didn't qualify that with you first, but now you know. Our
Yeah.
intention is to be live
Yeah.
for each recording.
I didn't know it'd be in front of millions of people each recording. That
Oh yes.
you had to let me know that.
The half dozens and so of people that will be joining us. Anyway, now, admittedly, this is a little bit of a trial run, but once we get into the groove, we're going to be aiming for every other Friday at noon Central Time, 10 a.m. Pacific. I'm taking a cue from Apple on that. That seems to work out pretty well. Apple schedules their live streams for noon, 10 a.m. Central. Figure it works for Apple. Let's make it work for us.
If it works for Apple, it'll work even better for us.
Absolutely. It'll work even better. You're right. And you'll find it at youtube.com/FMEO-TV. Now, I also have youtube.com/For Mac Eyes Only. I do not know why they got flip-flopped. At some point they got flip-flopped, and the channel that we're going to be putting this out on is FMEO, or For Mac Eyes Only, FMEO TV. I think I know when I did that, but there's nothing at /For Mac Eyes Only. So make sure you go to youtube.com/FMEO TV. Now, if you'd like to be notified when we go live, be sure to subscribe and then click that notification bell. And when you watch live, be sure to join us in the chat room. Now, to join in the chat room, you're going to have to, I should probably look. Yep, nope, there's nobody in there now. You're going to have to subscribe. You're going to have to subscribe to in order to participate in the chat room, but you only need to be subscribed for about 5 minutes, I think it is, and then you can start joining in on the chats. And I'll be able to monitor the chat room, and we'll be able to respond. And I believe, I have to look into it, Eric, but I believe you can see the chat room too.
I do see a comments thing.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. So you can see it too. You can participate in the
yeah.
chat room as well. But yeah, just subscribe to the show, click the notification bell, and join us in the chat room. And then, of course, we're always going to have the edited version of the show, the audio version that I imagine most of you are listening to right now. Okay, so with that said, let's get to the actual show, shall we, Eric?
Sounds good.
All right.
What was that again?
What was that? What was that? It was the tip of the Macberg. See, we're back to
That's
the
right.
cool titles.
That's
None
an
of this
awesome
reaction
name.
time stuff. Tip of the Macberg. That's what we're back to. So I have given a couple presentations at user groups recently on what I call the hidden gems of macOS, or one of our favorite topics here at For Mac Guys Only, tips and tricks for your Mac. So I thought, hey, we have a few different ideas for how we can come back, but why don't we come back with a classic and share some of our favorite tips and tricks for macOS? So you ready for that, Eric?
I'm ready.
All right, awesome.
At least I think I am.
So these are actually going to be some of my favorite hidden tips and tricks for macOS. I've got a big long list here to my right that I'm going to just kind of randomly pick from as we're going through our tips. But I think some of these are going to save you time. Some might surprise you, and some are just plain fun. But my focus is going to be on that core out-of-the-box macOS experience. And I'm planning to include topics as varied as Spotlight, the Finder, Preview, text editing tricks, and maybe even system preferences. How about you, Eric? What are you bringing to the table today?
Yeah, pretty much the same thing. Finder stuff is, yeah, kind of things that have been in the Finder. Some of them are new, some of them have been in there for years. I guess some accessibility things, as well as shortcuts. And then, yeah, I guess some other stuff too. I also system preferences as well.
Okay, very cool. Very cool. All right, so let's see here. Who would like to start? Would you like to start, Eric, with a tip?
It doesn't matter. You can start too. Either one.
That's Eric's way of saying, I think you should start, Mike. All right.
No, I can start too.
All right, so let's go through my list here. You know what? One of my favorite features, and longtime listeners know this, one of my absolute drop-down favorite features of macOS is Spotlight. So why don't we go over a few features of Spotlight that many people miss? And I'm going to start with a very, very simple one. Very simple. You know, I don't know when this started. Maybe you know, Eric. I don't know when this started, but at some point, when you pressed Command Space or you clicked the Spotlight icon in the menu bar, the Spotlight window showed up in the middle of your screen.
Yeah. I want to say that was like 3 or so versions ago, maybe.
Okay.
Whatever that would have been.
You know, I'm just realizing I might have to move my screen to the other side, because as I'm looking at my screen, it looks like I'm looking away from you.
That's okay.
Or maybe I flip-flop us on the live stream so that I'm sitting on the right and you're on the left. That would do it
On the
too,
left.
I think. Yeah. Anyway, so my first tip is that you can move the Spotlight window. It's amazing how many people I come across who don't realize that you can do that. So when you press Command Space or you click the Spotlight icon in the menu bar and that window pops up in the center, you can very easily just click and drag it wherever you would like it on your screen, and Spotlight will remember that location. So because I am so used to it being in the top right of my screen, my muscle memory always wants to look up in that top right. When I press Command Space, my brain immediately goes to the top right, and playing into that muscle memory by moving the spotlight window to the top right of the screen. So that is my first tip for Spotlight. If you did not know you can move that spotlight window, you can. Just click and drag it to anywhere on the screen you would like it. Top left, bottom center, bottom right, or the classic top right. And every time you open Spotlight from that point forward, it'll open in that same location. So that's my first tip for Spotlight. Now, my second tip for Spotlight is that you can use it for many cool conversions. Now, folks probably know that you can use it for calculations. So if you open Spotlight, and I'm going to keep saying Command Space because that's how I open Spotlight. If you open it by clicking the menu bar icon, the little magnifying glass up there, that's cool too. But I'm going to say Command Space each time because I think that is an incredibly useful keyboard shortcut to know. So you press Command Space and you type in 3 to the power of 2. And to do the power of 2, you would use that little, what do they call it? The caret symbol above
Caret.
the
Yeah.
6. So, Shift 6, you get the little caret. So 3 to the power of 2, and you'll get the results of 3 squared. Or you type in 67 divided by, which would be the slash under the question mark, divided by 5. You get the results, or even 2 plus 2. So many folks know you can do calculations, but what they don't realize is you can do conversions. So if you need to quickly look up how much, let's say, 10 US dollars is in euros, you can open up Spotlight, Command Space, and type in 12 or 10, I said 10 USD. If you type in 10 USD, you immediately get the results. I'm going to do it right now. We're going to see how much the US dollar is worth. The very first result is 9.69 euros. Just by typing in 10 USD. I don't even have to say in euros. I just have to say 10 USD and it comes back with that as the result. Now you can do things like in yen, and you'll get back 1,329 Japanese yen. So these results, according to Spotlight, are coming to us by way of Yahoo Finance. That is who is providing this information to Apple. But you can use Spotlight for simple conversions, like currency conversions. But you can also use it for other conversions. So things like inches to centimeters, or yards to inches, or kilometers to miles. If I type in, I'm going to tap escape here. If I type in 10 MI for miles, I'll get the result 16.09 kilometers. You can also do 10 MI in inches, and I'll get 633,600 inches. 10 miles is equal to that. So very quickly you get these kind of results in the Spotlight window just by typing in what it is you're looking for. So if you want to do a temperature conversion, you can do, let's say 70 F for Fahrenheit in C, centigrade, and you'll get the temperature conversion of that. Let's go ahead and do that. 70 F. Now I didn't even have to type in centigrade. I just typed in 70 F and I got 21.11 degrees centigrade. But what if I wanted to know what that is in Kelvin? I could type in K, Kelvin. Oh, I misspelled in.
You got to spell that.
It helps to spell incorrectly. So that's my other tip. If you're going to do conversions, make sure you spell in correctly. No, spell the word in correctly. Don't spell incorrectly. So 70 F in K is 294.26 Kelvin. So there you go. Conversions of all sorts are right at your fingertips by pressing Command Space and typing in A simple question, 10 USD, 70F, or what did I do? 10 miles. And you'll get different conversions. And if you want to specify a particular conversion, you can say in and then the abbreviation for that. So centimeters, yards, kilometers, Kelvin, centigrade, whatever it is you want to, yen, whatever it is you want to convert, just type it into Spotlight and it'll do that conversion for you. So that's my second Spotlight tip. Do we want more Spotlight tips, Eric? I got a bunch. I
Yes,
got a
Spotlight tips
bunch.
are great.
All right, let's do a couple more here. And then we'll move on to one of your tips. All right, so the next tip, weather. If you would like to check the weather, you can use Spotlight for that. Sure, you can open up that stupid sidebar and get the weather and yeah, nah, you don't want to do that. What if I want to know the weather in a specific location? Well, I can type in weather in, and again, spell incorrectly, San Jose. And you will get the weather in that location,
Which is really cool.
which is really cool. And of course, it's not working right at the moment. I wonder why it's not working. Now, if I just type in weather, I do see that it's giving me the 10-day weather forecast here for my local area. It's offering weather.com.
Well, it did come up for San Jose, California, sunny 70s, high 81.
Oh, okay. So it must just be me.
It just took a second.
Yeah, let me just reopen this. Okay, now it looks like it's working. All right, cool. So you can do that with Spotlight. You can look up contacts. I think most folks know that, but if you want to quickly look up a contact, open up Spotlight, type in last name, first name, and it will return with the results of contacts from your list of contacts synchronized on your Mac. I use it. Here's the one thing I use it for, and I've always used it for this. You can use it as an app launcher. Now, a lot of folks like the alternative app launchers that are available, and they say that they like it because you can use shortcuts, you can use abbreviations for the different apps that you're looking for. Well, it turns out that you can do that with Spotlight as well. So if you want to search for and launch an app, and you know the initials are, let's say, MW for Microsoft Word, you can just press Command Space, MW, and the very first result is Microsoft Word. Or you could type in FCP for Final Cut Pro, and it'll come in. You don't actually have to type in the full name of the app if you want to use Spotlight as an app launcher. You can type in the initials, and I think that's awesome. I don't believe that was always there. I believe that is something that they've added to Spotlight throughout the years, but it's nice to know that it's there, especially if you are using Spotlight for an app launcher.
It's been there a while, that's for sure. I think you're right. I don't think it's been there since the beginning, but it's been there for a while. I use, like you were talking about other app launchers, I use LaunchBar and I use it for other things, but Spotlight is really good, just like you were saying. I mean, I've used, especially when I'm using other people's Macs to help them or whatever, because they don't have LaunchBar on there, I'll use Spotlight in place of it. And it always does an admirable job. I mean, it is really terrific.
Yeah, and it's certainly gotten a lot better throughout the years, and
Yeah.
much quicker than it was in
Yeah.
the early days. Yeah. The last tip, excuse me for a second here. There we go. The last tip I want to cover for Spotlight, and I've got a bunch here. I've got a bunch, but the last one I'm going to cover for Spotlight before we move on to one of your tips, Eric, is natural language search. And specifically, I'm going to use photos in this example, but you can search for a number of different things in Spotlight. But one thing you can do is type in, for example, photos from 2016. And you'll get results in the Spotlight search that include photos from the year 2016. Now that might not be so useful, saying give me every photo from the year 2016, but what if you could type in photos from last week? Well, guess what? That works too. So anything that's in your photo library, or actually in theory anywhere on your Mac, quite honestly, because it is Spotlight and because it's integrated with the Finder and indexes everything that's stored on your Mac, it will find images. If you type in photos from last week, it'll find images from, excuse me, from anywhere on your Mac, not just within your photos library. And as I test it just now, that's in fact exactly what's happening. It's finding images, including screenshots from, well, yeah, I can tell. It's all the screenshots, all the saved images from Firefox, things like that I saved last week are all coming up in my Spotlight search results. And by the way, you can also type in pictures. So if you don't want to type in photos from last week, you can type in pictures last week. And you can even leave off the word from. But if it's easier to remember that you can do it by using a little bit more natural language, images or pictures from last week, it will acknowledge whether you use the word from or not. So there is a nice little handful of tips for Spotlight. Why don't we go to one of your tips, Eric?
Okay. Now that you did Spotlight thing, I think it's just going to overshadow anything I could come up with. But
Please.
one of the things I was thinking of is maybe going to the Finder. There are several things in the Finder that I like and I've used throughout. Some of them are really old and some of them are fairly new. And one of the things I think I've talked about before is spring-loaded folders. And I know it's something I use it quite a bit, and it's kind of amazing to me that it's still not in Windows. And that's if you have a file and you want to drag it into, let's say, a subfolder of a folder. Let's say it's on the desktop. You have a file that's on the desktop, and you have a folder that's on the desktop, or even in a window, and you want to drag it to another folder that's within there. If you drag that file and hold it over that folder, it will open that folder. It doesn't open it immediately, but after a few seconds, or if you hit the space bar, it'll open it up immediately. And so now that folder is open while you're still holding the file. You can now drag it into another folder or wherever you want to go from there. So, and then once you've done that, it generally will close back up again. And sometimes it'll stay open. I'm not sure exactly why it does one time and not another, but it's a terrific way of being able to bring files to, maybe where you have to go a couple different windows rather than having to open this window and open that folder and open that one. You can do it all within one move. And it's something that I think it's been there since the classic Mac. And actually, now that I think about it, I think it might have been something that was there that a third-party utility brought, and then Apple kind of took it, incorporated it into their. This is, like I said, back before macOS 10 or macOS and OS 10, and it's just stayed in there. So it's a really nice feature.
So you're saying Apple Sherlocked this feature?
No, they would never do that. Yeah. Besides, I don't think that third-party utility is still around anymore. So probably because they got Sherlocked.
Probably because and Spotlight. Spotlight
Yeah.
is one of those things too. The dashboard.
It is.
In fact, the new iPhone as a camera feature is something that is coming to Ventura this fall. I know a lot of folks are using it now, but there's a third-party app that does a fantastic job of it called Camo. And if you have not used Camo, but you're intrigued by being able to use your iPhone as a camera or an old iPhone as a camera on your Mac, you might want to actually use Camo over what Ventura is bringing, because Camo gives you a lot more control over things like exposure and brightness and color levels and all that kind of stuff, and it's all available free to try. And if it works well for you, you can purchase the, I think it's a subscription, an annual subscription to it, and get the more advanced features. And it'll tell you as you're using camo. In fact, it popped up and asked me if I wanted to use it for this. And I'm using the built-in iSight camera here. But it asked if I wanted to use it for this. And as you go through and you adjust settings, if it's a setting that is specific to the premium version, it'll tell you and let you know that, hey, look, it's cool that you like us. It's cool that you want to use us. But if you want to use this really cool feature and get a little bit more control over your phone's camera, you're going to have to buy the premium edition. But that's something.
Does it have the cool feature where
Go ahead.
sorry. Does it have the cool feature where it can look down? Like where it's even though it's sitting on top of your monitor, it like looks down on your desk, like the new Apple one's the new Ventura one's supposed to have.
To look down on your desk? How?
Well, it has multiple views. Like, so you're talking about where you can put your camera on your monitor and use it as a webcam, right?
Right.
There's a view on there, and I don't know how they do it, but it's like as if the camera, instead of sitting on top of your monitor, was actually hovering over your desk and looking down.
How would
so
they
that
do
it actually
that?
I don't know, but they demoed it in when they were demoing Ventura, and that looked really cool. But yeah, I have no idea how they.
I question that. I got to rewatch that presentation because how
you have to rewatch
they?
that.
The camera is not on some sort of jig in the phone. It's a
I know.
fixed lens. So the only way you could do that would be
is.
if you had it on some sort of articulating arm that you could bring it over. And I mean okay. So that is an excellent use of Ventura's iPhone as a camera feature, or camo. Is even if I wanted to use the iSight camera, which I'm using right now, if I wanted to show you something on my desk, having a separate tripod with an articulating arm with the iPhone as a camera would be a great way to do that, because now you've got two cameras on your Mac instead of just one.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
But apparently you don't even need to do that with
Wow.
the Ventura, whatever.
Well, I'm going to have to see that for myself because I don't believe you.
You believe me, it's there. No, what I was going to say, that's kind of Apple's method, though. You were saying, we're talking about Sherlocking. They'll take a feature, but it won't be as good as what you can get with the third party thing. I don't know if they do that because it's just easier. They think it's easier for the users, and or that they don't really just want to steal that company's thunder or whatever it is. Because I've always thought, some of the things that they've Sherlocked, I thought at least give the company credit, if not pay them for it outright. Just especially like Dashboard. I mean, that was Confabulator. That was such a blatant Sherlock.
Wouldn't you love to see Confabulator come back? I would love to see Confabulator come back.
I would. I was kind of wondering about that. I was hoping that something like that would, but not yet. Because the Notification Center doesn't do it for me.
Notification Center is weak. Yeah.
It is very weak.
Dashboard was incredibly powerful. The limitation of Dashboard was the method by which the dashboard widgets were created. I believe that was the limitation of it. And the Notification Center allows some more complex programming. I believe everything, if I remember correctly, and I did not code any dashboard widgets, but we did have a listener code a for Mac Eyes Only dashboard widget for us many, many years ago. But I believe it's all HTML.
It is. It's
HTML5.
all HTML, JavaScript.
Yeah.
It's
like
basically
creating little mini web pages.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you're right. And Notification Center is just pretty much using native Swift, Objective-C, whatever. They're almost like little applets, but yeah. So there's a lot more you can do with it. But again, it would be great if somebody would create a dashboard type application with, the ability to do more. That's not, just using HTML and
I, now Confabulator, is that, there were a couple different widget applications. Is Confabulator the one that was purchased by Yahoo and became Yahoo widgets?
it could have been it. That
I,
was so long ago. I can't
I
remember.
know, I think it was. And I did use Confabulator. I believe it became something like Yahoo widgets or something like that. And we know that everything Yahoo touches dies a slow, painful death. Um,
Yeah, it's,
including
it's
that.
where applications, yeah,
They,
applications and services go to die. I know.
yeah, they can't just buy something and kill it off, like Google and Apple do. Google and Apple will just flat out kill it off. No. Yahoo
Right.
has to let it smolder and die and say, no, we're still here, but we're slowly gasping for breath.
Right.
Yeah,
Exactly. No,
that
yeah, you're right. Google and Apple pretty much take it out back and shoot it. Where,
that's the Yahoo
Yahoo,
way.
we will make you suffer until you can't. Yeah.
Until you just absolutely have to put it out of its misery. Anyway,
Right.
anyway.
Uh,
Okay. You know what? I'm going to go with a finder tip then because this kind of dovetails into what you were talking about a moment ago. How many times have you opened up an application, you create a document, and you go to save it, and the location you need to save it is buried deep, deep, deep in the finder. And yet, because of your workflow, and I do this very frequently, because of your workflow, you've got a Finder window open off to the right that has the location where you need to save that document. But the Save As dialog box is making you drill down to get to that location. Well, my tip will save you a ton of time, because if you have a window open already, a Finder window, and that's where you want to save your document, or if it's even close to where you want to save your document, at the very top of that Finder window is the title of that Finder window, right? And next to that title, up until Monterey, next to that title is a little icon. It's a little icon. It's called the title icon. And if you click and drag that title icon, which looks like a little folder, if you click and drag that title icon to the Save As dialog box, the Save As dialog box will jump to that location instantly.
she's
And then you
really
can click
slick.
Save, which is super, super slick. So
And you could
that's
still get the icon back from Monterey too. It's still there. You just got to turn it on. Oh,
that's
sorry.
that's my part B,
Oh, sorry.
Eric. Eric.
Make sure to cut out.
No, I'm not going to cut that out. All right, that's my part B. So part A was, if you have a window already open that's at that location or near that location, you can grab that little title icon and drag it to the Save As dialog box, or the Open dialog box, by the way. It works with that as well. But in which case you wouldn't do that. You would just double click the file you want to open and it would open in the app that you want to open it in. But when you're saving, you don't necessarily have that option. So saving, it's very, very useful. And I must use this feature multiple times per day. Now, Monterey changed things. Monterey has decided that it's smart to automatically hide that title icon, which is frustrating as all get out for someone like me that uses it multiple times a day. Now, the trick is with Monterey, if you just hover your cursor over the title, it'll appear. It'll just instantly appear, and you can click and you can drag it just like you always did. But if you move the cursor away, it hides. However, part B of my tip is that in Monterey, if you go into System Preferences, and then Accessibility, and then Display, you can check a little box next to Show Window Title Icons, and they'll be right back again. And they'll stay there on screen. So that is the second part. If you use that feature where you're dragging and dropping title icons into dialog boxes and you find that useful, be sure to go into Accessibility, Display, and then Display again. It's the Display tab under Display. And check the box for Show Window Title Icons, and you'll have them back again so you don't have to wait that split second to have it reappear when you hover over it with the cursor.
Which is great.
Yeah.
It's just awesome tip too, especially for, being able to get to a certain, just being able to get to a certain folder through a window on the desktop. And I've been using default folder for years to do the same thing.
Yeah.
It's a little different thing, but that's just, I love it when things are built in where you don't need, even though I rely on third-party software all the time, I love it where it's something that's actually there. It's stuff like that's actually built in.
Brian, who I mentioned earlier, Brian Henson, teases me because I call those one-trick pony apps. And it's an app that you install on your Mac that does one thing. It does it really well, but it just does one thing. And
One thing.
it's like default folder X, or it's like some of the other apps I might have running up here that I actually don't use a lot of one-trick pony apps, quite honestly. But we did a whole episode on it years and years ago where Brian came on and talked about his favorite one-trick pony apps. And I will very often use the Mac equivalent because even though the one-trick pony app does a lot more, and I guess Camo would fall in that category once Ventura comes out, it's a one-trick pony. It turns your iPhone into a camera. So let's keep picking on Camo for a second. It's a one-trick pony app, but it does so much more than what the Ventura iPhone as a camera feature, I don't even know what they're officially calling it, will do. So yes, it's one trick pony, but it's so useful that in my case, I think I would pick it over what's coming with Ventura. Now I haven't tested Ventura yet. I don't have the beta loaded up. Maybe once I do, I'll say, oh yeah, I'll use the Ventura version because whatever. But in your case, default folder X or some of these other apps that Brian loves are little one-trick pony apps that I can't think of off the top of my head. That yes, there's an equivalent for it. Decompression apps, uncompressors. Apps that open zip apps. To be simple about it, you don't need an unarchiver, I think is one of them. You don't need one of those on your Mac. If you have tar files or tar.gz files or zip files or whatever, most of those can be opened natively on the Mac. But for many folks, it's just simpler and easier to use something like Unarchiver because it's all in one place. And you don't have to know arcane command line commands to open up a tar-z file or what have you. Even though Finder will open up tars and tar-gzs now. But, in the past, you might have had to open a terminal window and use the tar command to do that. But here you have an app that'll do it for you. You don't have to worry about those commands. Boom, you're done.
Right. In the case of default folder, for me, it does a lot more than, it does a lot of stuff where it's kind of integrated into my workflow now that it's hard for me not to, because anytime I get a new Mac, a lot of times, and there's been a number of times where instead of just migrating everything over, I just copy things over or install things as I need it, and I try to go without stuff for a while. And default folder is one of those that I can't seem to go too long. Just because I have, it's easier to go through. It basically kind of gives you menus. This was like another third-party utility back in the day too, where you could go through, instead of going through the save open dialog box and drilling down through there, you could drill down through menus instead. And you'd bring up the contents of a folder, in a menu, and you could go to another folder. It's almost like, it's not quite like column view in Windows, but similar. And it's just really fast, and it keeps all the folders I was last in and favorites and all that stuff. So it's something I end up using it quite a bit. But again, if it was part of the Mac, I would definitely use it.
There are lots of one trick pony. Launch Bar is one that comes to mind.
Yeah.
That's another one
Launch,
that
yeah.
Brian
To it, yeah.
loves. I believe you use that. I just use Spotlight. Uh,
Mhm.
Probably if I got into Launch Bar, I would say, hey, I understand. I'm going to be using Launch Bar from now
Yeah.
on. But there are, look,
Right.
I'm not a stranger to one trick pony apps. In fact, one I use all the time is called Desktop Curtain. Now it
Yeah.
it has functionality that can't be reproduced on the Mac other than keeping a neat desktop. And I
Right.
do not keep a neat desktop. So if I'm going to give demos and I'm going to be using my main account, which I try not to do, I have a separate account set up on my Mac. Here's a tip for you. If you're going to give demonstrations from your Mac, create a separate account. Create another account that is just dedicated to giving demonstrations. Then you can do things like hide the dock or hide the desktop icons or not have your desktop filled with all the documents and applications that you're working on. And you can even create demo photo libraries. You can create demo documents. You can have all this stuff in the demo account so that whenever you give demonstrations, you're not exposing your own personal private information. Contacts, bookmarks, one password passwords, all these kind of things that you might want to demo, but you can't figure out how to demo neatly or cleanly from your own account. Just create a separate account on your Mac and log into that account each and every time you want to give a demo. And that's exactly what I do at Macstock. This MacBook Pro is used at Macstock, but when my presenters give their presentations, they're signed into a Macstock account on this computer, not into my account.
Which is
Yeah, but that said, Desktop Curtain is one I use because I don't keep a neat desktop. If I have to give a quick demonstration and I'm not set up for it from the other account, I'll turn on Desktop Curtain just so that people don't see all that junk sitting around on my desktop. And I absolutely love it for that. And
yeah.
I'm sure there's some others too. I use Jump Cut. Jump Cut is a great little app for clipboard managing. It just does plain text clipboards, but it's something I rely on, and I mostly only use it for retaining text that I've copied, URLs and paragraphs and things like that I've copied, but want to be able to reproduce many many times and not have to worry about losing it because I've pressed Command C on something else. Jump Cut does that for me. I love Jump Cut. Little Ipsum is one of those one trick pony apps that does nothing but generate lorem ipsum text, filler text for when you're doing layout work. It's great for that. I'm just going through my applications folder here to see what else I have in there that I do use pcalc. I do use pcalc. I suppose that's a one trick pony
Peacock
app.
is awesome.
Pcalc is absolutely awesome. And when Dashboard, speaking of Dashboard, when Dashboard went away, I relied so heavily on the dashboard calculator that it was a big hole in my life when it was gone. I didn't know what to do. And so I ended up purchasing pcalc. It puts a little menu bar icon up there. And
Remember that?
I set up the keystroke to open pcalc is the same as dashboard. So that I swear the dashboard calculator was so ingrained in my workflow that I had to set up the same keystroke for pcalc. I just had to, and it's been invaluable. I absolutely love pcalc, and I'm sure there's some others, and we can have another one trick pony app show sometime. Uh, but
Yeah.
in fact, here's a
Yeah.
program called
Not
Dapple
a bad
Gray that has a pony as its icon. So there you go.
idea. Well,
Anyway,
Dapple Gray, kind of
Dapple
expect.
Gray. Yeah, we'll talk
Uh,
about Dapple Gray some other time. All right. So let's see. That was my tip. That was a Finder tip. Why don't we go back to another tip from you, Eric?
well, I was going to say this is another Finder tip, but you were talking about if you don't keep a clean desktop, and this is no substitute for Desktop Curtain, but something that was added in the last version that not Monterey, but I think Catalina or whatever was before that, and that is desktop stacking or grouping, where you can keep the
Oh,
icons in your desktop kind of grouped by type or by kind. I think you can keep them grouped on a couple different qualifications, but I kind of have it grouped by type or kind. So I have the images grouped together, documents. And so instead of like having this desktop full of icons, I just have a few folders and then I have a few icons and then there's essentially you click on the icons themselves and then it expands out and shows you what's all in that stack. So if
Mm.
it's images, it shows you all the pictures. And it's actually kind of a nice way to keep your desktop cleaner. The downside is to it, if you use it pretty heavily and you've got a lot of files on there, you're going to have to be clicking on a file on a group stack just to see what's in there. So like if you're looking for a particular file, you're going to have to click on this, so it doesn't really make it streamlined or simpler to use or find stuff, but it does make it a lot easier to look at. If you're one to keep a lot of stuff on your desktop or you need to keep a lot of stuff on your desktop, it really helps. It's really a nice thing.
Well, I will play off of that in that there is a stack feature of, well, it was originally OS 10 and now Mac OS that I set up on every new Mac that I set up, and that is taking my home folder, dragging it to the right side of my dock, and then setting up that home folder as a stack, a grid stack. And that's so that I can just click on that home folder and immediately go to my applications folder or downloads or music or wherever I want to go within my home folder by just clicking that stack. It's one click away versus having to open the Finder, which is one click, then going to my home folder, which I don't have Finder set to open as by default, then going to the folder I want to go to and opening that folder. Here it's one click. One click, there's my home folder stack. Boom, I'm ready to go. Now, that's also why I don't ever use, I don't even know what it's called, Launchpad? Is it called Launchpad?
Launchpad, yeah.
I don't ever use Launchpad because one of the other things I set up by default, every time I set up a new Mac for me, is to take the applications folder, the main applications folder on your Mac's hard drive, internal storage drive. Why do they still call it Macintosh HD when they're all SSDs now?
Yeah, I have no idea.
But probably because calling it Macintosh internal storage drive would be a little too long. So Macintosh HD just works better. Anyway, the main applications folder I drag to the right side of my dock as well, set it up in grid view, and to launch, if I'm not launching with Spotlight, which I often do, I will click on the applications folder in my dock and I'll get that Launchpad-like view in alphabetical order of my applications folder. And that's the way I launch any app I don't launch with Spotlight. So I very rarely go into the applications folder itself. I go into the stack version of it that's on my dock.
I've got the exact same thing. I use Launchbar principally, but I've got that same thing set up in grid view. It's a nice view. It's just great just to be able to quickly go through your applications and see what you have.
Absolutely. Here's something that they added to macOS fairly recently. I think it's just been within the last few releases. And that's the ability to rename multiple files at once. Now, this is where we used to have to
That's what I was going to say.
Is that one
You
of
just
your
stole
from
my
your
idea.
list? Okay.
Go ahead. No. You get to.
I'm going to put it on side-by-side view here, and we'll both chime in on this one because this is something we used to have to use a one-trick pony app for. If you wanted to rename a whole bunch of folders, and in my case, it's almost always photos that have come off my camera. I had the color space set up wrong on my Canon camera, and all the pictures were coming out with underscore MG underscore, and then the rest of the file name, not IMG underscore, because I had the color space set wrong. And when you have the colors, or not wrong, but differently, and when you have the color space set the way I had it, it puts an underscore at the beginning instead of an I. Go figure. I don't know why, but that's what it does.
Who
So
knows?
I wanted to, once I pulled them onto my Mac, I wanted to rename them all. So this has been an absolute uh, godsend as far as that's concerned. Because if you want to rename multiple files on your Mac at once, all you have to do is select them in the Finder, and you can use, look, you can use either the grid view, you can use the list view, you can use column view, whatever works better for that particular series of files that you want to rename. Uh, so you can, so for example, if you have list view, you can select them out of series. So you can click the first file, shift click the last file in a series, and then use command to select additional files so that you have this kind of out of series selection of files. But once you have them selected, you right click that selection and you have an option to rename. And in that option to rename, you can choose to rename by replacing text. So in my case, I would have replaced the underscore MG with IMG. You can add text to it, which allows you to add text either after the name or before the name. Or you can just come up with a brand new format for the name. And that format can be the name and an index, a name and a counter, a name and a date. And you can decide where you want that custom format to be applied, whether it should be after the name or before the name. And it's incredibly powerful. So for simple use cases like that, where you just need to rename a whole bunch of files, and sometimes I have files that are completely named differently. Like maybe I'll have 50 files and they're all named differently, but I need them to be somehow grouped by name. I'll use this feature for that as well. And it's great. And as you're doing it, as you are adjusting the name, it will show you an example of what that file or how those files are going to look after you apply this. So it's a very nice feature. I'm glad they added it to macOS. It was long needed. And while I don't use it all the time, I use it frequently enough that I would miss it if it were ever taken out.
Yeah, for sure. I'm right with you on that. I still have the One Trick Pony app. I still run into times where for whatever reason I need to have more of a complex or more options as far as renaming files. But this I've used more and more, and it usually does the trick. A lot of, especially if you just have a bunch of files you just want to rename really quick, like to give them the same name or something. It's perfect for that. It really
Absolutely.
is.
It really is. It really is. Let's see here. Now, I think we should wrap things up pretty soon, but why don't we each give one more tip? And then if folks like this, if you like these tips, I have got just scores and scores of tips that I've given in presentations before that I would be happy to cover on For Mac Eyes Only. I know you do too, Eric. So if you guys like this, let's do more. Let's do a
Yeah.
series of these. But let us know. Write to me, Mike at formaceyeisonly.com, and let me know that you like these, and we'll put together future episodes. Not every episode, but we'll put together future episodes with these kind of tips in them to help you get the most from your Mac. But why don't we do just a couple more, maybe one or two more each, and then we'll wrap things up. So I'm gonna let
Sounds
you
good.
I'm gonna let you do the next one, Eric.
Okay. So probably the next one, moving from the Finder, I would say utilizes shortcuts, and this was I think added in Catalina or whatever the last. And I'm kind of a big fan of shortcuts. I have been a big fan of shortcuts on the iPhone, and actually back when it was owned by not by Apple, but it was Workflow back in the day. And actually, Apple has worked hard at making it do more and better, which I was a little worried when they bought it. And now they brought it to the Mac. And I've been a big Apple script guy, well, at least fairly big, and using that for automating things. And I also liked I can't think of the name, Automator. And I was a little
Oh, yeah.
concerned that they might let that die. And I can kind of see now probably the future is shortcuts, which they've, like I said, they've done a pretty good job of it. Anyway, one of the things you can do with shortcuts is turn them into quick actions. So you can set up a shortcut to do whatever you want and then save it as a quick action. So then it's accessible in the Finder is when you right click, or it's also accessible in the menu bar, and it'll be under like a shortcuts uh, menu. It's like you see the little shortcuts icon. Anyway, the reason why that's nice is you can set up things that you do over and over again, and it's quickly accessible. And so, one of the things might be you could write up some shortcut to manipulate photos, resize them, change the aspect, do whatever, and then select a bunch of photos, right click on it, and choose that quick action, that shortcut through a quick action, I should say, and have them all done, instantly. The other thing you can do, like for instance, I did, for my mom, she has a light near her computer, and it's a hue light, and I set up a quick action from a shortcut to turn on that hue light when all she has to do is go up to the menu bar, click on computer light, and it'll turn it on or it'll turn it off,
That's awesome.
depending on what it's on. And so it's just quick little stuff like that. That's great.
That is great. And that's actually a really good use of shortcuts. We have had a couple really amazing presentations on shortcuts at Macstock throughout the years. Rosemary Orchard gave a fantastic one in 2019, and it even though I still am not using them on a regular basis, it really piqued my interest for what kind of power is buried there in shortcuts. I like you used Automator a lot, and yet I've yet to use shortcuts much. I still find myself going to Automator, even though I know Automator is eventually going to go away. So I really need to get into shortcuts more, and that those kind of simple daily life enhancement examples, I think, are what more people need to hear to understand the simplistic power of what you can do with
Yeah.
shortcuts.
Yep. Exactly.
Um, I, let's see. What I have so many in front of me here, so many tips to give, and so many of them I love. Let me let me look at the list here. This is a simple one. I really like this one though, and I forget about it all the time. We were talking about having Finder windows open earlier and how you can drag and drop the title icon over to open and save dialog boxes. But here's something too. If you have multiple Finder windows open, as I do, and they're stacked, they're layered, you can see that there's one back behind what you're working on, but you'd like to kind of see it a little bit better. You can actually, without bringing it to the foreground, you can move a Finder window without giving it focus. And when I say give it focus, I mean clicking on it and bringing it to the foreground. So if I
The front.
have a Finder window in the foreground and I want a Finder window that's back behind it, I want to see what's in it, but I don't necessarily want to give it focus, you hold down the Command key and then click and drag that window, and you can drag it from behind the other open Finder windows.
Yep.
It's super simple, but when you need
And
it,
it's useful.
it's very useful. Very useful to have that feature.
That was one thing I taught myself early on. That has been there since the Mac Classic. I mean, at least since System 7. I don't know if it was before that or not, but yeah, that is one really nice thing.
Isn't that it? I mean, it's so simple, and yet knowing that it's there, and more importantly, in my case, remembering that it's there, uh,
Yeah. Yeah.
is really useful. I almost always forget that it's there, but then I remember it.
Yeah.
I'm going to save that one for later. We talked about renaming multiple files. Here's something simple I come across fairly frequently. Folks will import their pictures from their camera into photos. And very often I've come across folks who feel that their pictures are locked into photos, which in a way they are, but they feel as if they need to do everything with those pictures within photos. And while photos will do a lot for you, the editing tools are great, especially if you have something like Pixelmator Pro or Affinity Photo or something like that installed. The extensions that those apps add to photos are incredibly powerful. But if you need to do something simple like, I don't know, send it through a texting system that's not integrated with photos, for example, and the share menu doesn't work with it, or you need to send it, here's a good example, via Gmail on the web, and you don't have that integration to share it from photos to Gmail, but you want to send a particular picture, you can drag it, you can drag that picture out of photos to your desktop, and it won't remove it from photos. It'll just make a copy of it that you can do with whatever you want. So if you want to edit it in a different way and not have those edits affect the picture within photos, or you want to send it as an attachment within Gmail or some other web-based email program, or you need to upload it to a website that's asking for a picture of you or something, you can drag it out of photos to your desktop, and now you've got a separate copy that you can do whatever you want to with that will not affect the original that's stored within photos. Now, when you drag it out, you used to be, with iPhoto, you used to be able to specify the format that it took when you dragged it out. To the best of my knowledge, it only drags out in a high resolution JPEG now. You
I
used to
think
be
you're
able to
right.
drag out a copy of the original, but
Hmm.
now it only does high resolution JPEG. But that's fine. You know, for most people's purposes, that's fine. So if you need to work with an image, use it with a service that Photos doesn't support with the sharing feature. You just drag it out to your desktop, do whatever you want to with it, crop it, resize it, recolor it, whatever, and then take that picture that's saved on your desktop and upload it to the service or what have you. So that's a simple Photos tip.
Which is it is really a nice one. I mean, it is something that I've used too. And like you said, you can always export it if you needed to save it as original or whatever. You can do the
Absolutely.
export. This is just a quick way of getting a photo out and then doing whatever you want.
Especially when
It's
you know, if what you need doesn't require, you know, if you shoot in RAW, for example,
right,
and
right,
what you're doing doesn't require that original RAW, you don't need the original file, dragging it out in JPEG is more than adequate in
perfect,
most cases.
right, exactly. Nope, that's exactly right.
All right, one more tip from you, Eric.
One more tip for me. Okay, let's see. I was kind of going through a bunch of, I think I'll just mention focus mode. It's something that was on the phone. Well, it started out as do not disturb way back when. And then I think the last iOS 13, they came up with focus mode. And it was something that I used a real lot and actually still use even more. And it's on the Mac. And I really like it. Anyway, what you can do is, especially on the Mac part of it, is you can actually have it automatically go into particular focus based on the application that you're using. And it also does this on the phone as well. But you can specify focus mode based on the time of day as well as the app you're using. And what that does is it's like a do not disturb, and you can kind of specify who can disturb you is and how they can. And it also says, the people using Message or iMessage, it'll say this person has their, and you can turn this off too, their notifications silenced. But it's just a great way. For instance, I'm using it here. I'm using a focus mode that I created for podcasting, so that I don't have a bunch of, if I don't get a bunch of alerts coming through the Mac while I'm talking and interrupting everything. And what I'll probably end up doing is, since we'll be typically using the same application and the same website, I might tie that in there so it'll just automatically turn the focus on, so that I won't even have to think about it. But having these different focus modes are really, it's just a great idea. And it is something that I use. I'm not sure probably if it's something that everybody knows about or everybody uses it. I really use it with the phone. For example, when I'm going to, after this, I'm going to film at a place. And so I've set up the location to turn on the filming focus so that, again, I don't get disturbed or I don't have messages or phone calls and that sort of thing come through while filming, because obviously that can be very disruptive. But yeah, so I would say that would be my last tip.
That is an amazing tip, and it's one I wish I listened to more often. In fact, as host of this first ever live stream for Mac Eyes Only, where we are recording episode 393, I'm embarrassed to say that I remembered to mute my phone. I remembered to turn off the ringer on my desk phone. I remembered all that, but I completely forgot to put my Mac into do not disturb mode. So I think we should just be lucky that nothing has shown up on screen that I don't want to go out to the rest of the world. Now it's possible that Ecamm Live does that for me, and I'm just not aware of that. But
Yeah. Okay.
yeah, and I don't really have anything running right at the moment that would be sending notifications. I guess I could test it, but
Well, sometimes you don't have to.
yeah. Sometimes you don't have to, but
I'll get notifications for messages and I won't have it running.
oh, yeah, you're right. You're right. You'll get yeah,
So
absolutely. Fortunately, not many people know my know my text or my iMessage number, so
yeah.
that's probably the only thing working in my favor. But that is an excellent tip, and I checked, and my Mac is not in Do Not Disturb mode, so I'll have to remember to do that for next time. So I have one more. One more. Again, I've been sticking with kind of simple tips. I have a couple that are a little more in depth, and I think maybe what we'll do is we figure out how to demo these on the live stream when we do this again in the future, because they kind of depend
Yeah.
upon being demoed. But this one, I mentioned system preferences tips, and this is one I'm gonna bring up because how many times do you open system preferences and you see these lovely rows of icons in there, and they're grouped by apparently functionality? I don't know. I don't know how they're grouped. They're grouped somehow
I
by
don't
like
know.
hardware, and I don't know. They're in there and they're a
I've
mess, and
never figured that out.
you can't figure out where something is. And how I find myself looking at this list and okay, where the heck is sound? Where is it? I can't find it.
Yeah.
Well, that happens to me more often than not. So here are two tips for system preferences to make it a little easier to navigate. First, with system preferences open, go up to your menu bar and click on View, and then select Organize Alphabetically. That's it. Organize alphabetically, and you don't have to see your system preferences organized by category. Now, I do understand. This is going to be changing with Ventura, but there's going to be a lot of folks who don't jump on Ventura right away. If you're still using Monterey or older, this tip will apply to you. I have not tried it in Ventura yet. I don't know how it's going to work in that.
Well,
But
settings is terrible in Ventura.
is it? Well, no doubt, because, why not
Yeah.
take something that works on the iPad and try to, shoehorn it into the Mac? Why not?
Right.
Um, and
Right.
that's kind of what they did, in my opinion. But
It is. It's not right.
yeah, it's not right. So first tip with system preferences, click on View, organize alphabetically. That's one. Now, let's say you like categories. You're just used to it. It would look weird to have everything organized alphabetically. So you want to stick with categories, but you want to clean things up a little bit. Well, again, go to that handy dandy view menu and choose Customize. When you choose Customize, each of the icons within System Preferences gets a little checkbox next to it, and you can turn off the system preferences that you never ever find yourself going into. So I have a system preference in there for a third party driver. I don't need to go in there very frequently. I could turn that off. Maybe you don't use the startup disk system preference all that frequently. You can turn it off. Maybe you don't use screen time at all. I don't ever use screen time. Why have it in there clogging up the works? Turn it off. Siri, turn it off. We won't even discuss Siri. So that's that's for another show. But you can come in here and you can turn off any system preferences that you don't find useful. Click done at the top of the window, and now you'll have a much simpler view of your Mac's system preferences. So that's my last tip.
That's an excellent tip, actually. And you know what? One I kind of forgot was there, and I'm kind of going through now and just
Turning things off.
shut. Yeah, yeah. Well, this might be stupid, but like even the mouse, since I use a trackpad, and you could do it for the trackpad. I mean, if you don't use that, why have it show up?
Exactly. Exactly. If you don't use a mouse, why have the mouse system preference in there?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yep.
Yep. Well, any other quick tips you want to add, or should we wrap things up and do another episode of this in the future?
Yeah, let's do the latter because I can think of anything that would not take some time. That I think it's getting to the point too, like where you said it'd be good to demo because there was some things I skipped over because I'm like, I don't know how it would say that. So
Yep.
yeah,
I agree. So we'll save some of these for a future demo. So with that said, that's going to do it for this episode of For Mac Guys Only. I hope everyone enjoyed it. Remember, I do love to get your letters, so if you have a comment about the show, a tip to share, or a software or hardware problem with your Mac, you can write to me, mike@formacguysonly.com. And if you would like to share your feedback with Eric or anyone on Team For Mac Guys Only, our email and social network addresses can be found on the Meet Team For Mac Guys Only page at formacguysonly.com. And Eric, your email address specifically is eric@formacguysonly.com if anyone would like to reach out to you. Yep.
yep.
So thank you so much for listening, everyone. And thanks to Eric for joining me this episode.
You bet. I wouldn't miss it for the world. Since I was the one that was apparently saying,
you must do it. You must do it.
You must do it. Yeah.
Stay subscribed, and we'll talk to you next time.